one of the topics that we have brought up repeatedly in the podcast is cybersecurity, security in general. And that is because it is a really important topic. Dennis, I think that this is something that I think the developments and the things that change in the industry happen every single day.
Yeah, and the bad guys keep getting worse and keep challenging us all. And this is not only for business, this is for your personal life as well, because we're all on apps and emails and all that kind of stuff. And so we're all potential targets for these crazy guys out there that are doing crazy things and mean things. And with AI, it even ratchets them up. AI is a good thing, but this is where AI is a bad thing.
This is the dark side of it.
It's the dark side of what, and it's the good and the bad of what we deal with. And so, October is Cybersecurity Month. And so today's September 30th, and we've got Bob Quandt with Bullseye Compliance joining us to talk about, I'm going to say, just some common sense things you can do. I mean, he doesn't get into the nitty gritty. He talks about things you and your employees or you and your family can do just to help create that extra layer of security that's out there to help avoid these bad people that are out there being crazy.
Yeah, don't sleep on this one. This is an important topic. And if there is an opportunity for someone to, I don't say make money, scam money out of, individuals, big companies, small companies, charities, nonprofits, it doesn't matter. We're all targets. And so this is something that's never going to go away. It's going to be something that's always going to be here. So this is one you definitely need to give it a listen. It's definitely worthwhile podcast, and Bob brings up some really good points. So let's take a listen to this one.
WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
So one of the things, Dennis, and you know this from I'm the technology consultant business. And so I talk with clients of various sizes and shapes and forms, and we talk about a lot of different things, whether it be cloud computing, we talk about contact centers and being able to put in phone systems. I even talk to clients about merchant card services. And depending upon what their needs are, we have different things that we talk about. But without a doubt, 100% of the clients that I talk to, regardless of size, industry, whatever, I talk to them about cybersecurity because I don't think we can underestimate the importance of what cybersecurity protection, security protection in general for a company happens to be.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people kind of sometimes just lapse and don't even think about it. And people are constantly, the bad guys are trying to be bad, and the good guys, we all try to do our stuff. And you kind of take it for granted that there's these people that are just doing everything possible to get to you, your information. And with AI, they can really outsmart you in today's world too. That's the other challenge. So it's not, I was listening to some newscast yesterday, and someone had lost a bunch of money because they had recorded the voice and it sounded like the daughter. And so they had, gone through this whole thing and basically withdrew the money and gave it to her, and then come to find out it wasn't her. And so, there's all kinds of things but there's things you can do. And a lot of it's just common sense, smart things, and to be aware. And I think, you can't let your guard down because the bad guys are going to keep being bad. And with AI and software and all our information, it's out there. So it's, you've got to do your thing. So we've got a guest on today to help us talk about that. And October is Security Month. And so that's why we've got Bob Quandt on to talk about security. Bob, hey, it's great to have you back.
Welcome back.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Dennis. It's great to be here, and great timing, like you said, with October coming up. This has been traditional Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I know for at least 15 of the 20 years I've been in the business. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so, for our listeners, we want you guys definitely to focus on it in October, but hopefully the other 11 months of the year you focus on it as well. But it's one to keep it top of, and it, again, Benny, you hit on it. Everyone thinks it's the big guys that they're going to go after. It's the small ones. I had a client that they're in the retail world. So, they're a good sized company, but they're not huge. But the company that supported them with software got basically taken down. And so they had the whole month of April that they couldn't operate in their system, and they had to go back to manually taking orders, which was devastating for them and all the other clients of this software company that they were working with, because someone had hacked in and basically taken control of their database and couldn't, they couldn't process their orders. And so it can happen to anybody in today's world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've mentioned that in the past. I think the last time we were on there, Dennis, too, was that a lot of these larger organizations, they've tightened their controls. They're definitely not immune to it, because we see it in the headlines all the time, the large organizations getting hit. But they've tightened some of their controls, where a lot of people are going after easy targets, and unfortunately, a lot of those easy targets are the small, medium-sized businesses out there that haven't spent the money or invested the time into building out their security controls. So,
and it's one of those things where it's kind of like insurance. You hate to pay for it, but when a disaster happens and you don't have it, it makes the disaster 10 times worse. And there's lots of things, Bob, I think you're going to share with the listeners. There's just some common sense things you can do without spending a ton of money or any money on. Some of this is just smart processes and things that people can do individually, on their own. And I think this applies not only to a business, but also applies to your personal life, because we all have personal emails and all this other stuff. So it's not just business related.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things to focus on, and in the past, I would recommend anybody, if you go to CISA.gov for the month of October, they'll have just a slew of information out there about October and things that you can look at and even train your staff. And so one of the things that, even if you are a small business, just yourself, or you have several people that are working with you, is really one of your weakest links is always going to be the end user, the person that's in front of the computer. That's who the social engineers are going after. That's who they're trying to trick. And so I wanted to focus on a few things that have been, CISA, which is a government organization that helps kind of provide documentation around security, things to be aware of. I wanted to provide some things, like you said, Dennis, some common sense items that you can give to your end users, and also for yourself, just to protect yourself in the workplace, but also at home. And I can just start going through those if that works, or however y'all.
Yeah, jump in it.
So one of the things that I see a lot and would recommend is just, the use of strong passwords and password managers. If you haven't used a password manager, there's lots out there. Usually for individual use, it's free. If you have a small work account, there'll be some cost to it. Solutions like LastPass, Bitwarden, that are out there. But really with these,
I use OnePass. I think it's $119 a year or whatever. It's the best $119 that I spend, because it creates the passwords for us, instead of 123 or 123 password or whatever it is people use all the time. It creates those crazy ones. Now, it's not easy to type, so you have to copy and paste, but it creates those, and it just makes life so much easier.
Absolutely. And like I said, you're not having weak passwords, which I think is a common thing. That's what attackers are looking for, is how do I attack that weak password? And, we probably all have this, but I have a family member where, every time I would help them out, because I'm also the family tech guy, even though, I'd say I'm not an expert, but I get called whenever there's a computer issue in the family. And every time I'd go over to help him, I'd say, well, do you want to log into this? He's like, oh, just here's my password. And it was a 6-character password, easy to guess.
Yeah.
And I'm like, please tell me this is not your password for everything. He's like, oh yeah, it is. So I tried to, got him set up with a password manager and, some better practices there. But if you have something in that type of situation, you are for sure going to, it's not a matter of if, but when you're going to get hit at some point.
And especially the ones where they, to your point, they have a really bad password in the first place, and then they use the same password on every single login. Exactly. You just made it real easy for the bad guys at that point, because they just start with AI. They just start going and using your login and that password and see what they can get into.
Absolutely. And and this is something, this is probably goes against what you've commonly heard maybe from corporate security. But if you do have elderly family members or people that are less technical, we used to say never write your passwords down, but for my parents that are in their 80s, they're not going to be able to use a password manager. So it's,
Yeah.
hey, let's write these down, let's secure that password book. It's not sitting out on the kitchen counter. But there's other ways you can think creatively, even if you're not technical enough to want to try to maybe use a password manager.
And I would think, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but also changing passwords periodically is not a bad thing either. Don't keep the same password. I know in our system, you can set it where every 90 days it's going to pop up and ask you to automatically change those. And I think some clients turn it on, some don't, but I think that's a good tool as well.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, and that was kind of the traditional recommendation. It's interesting that Dennis's NIST several years ago actually changed some guidance around that. So their guidance is, if you're creating strong passwords, so um, at least 12 characters plus, you're using maybe passphrases or something like that to create your passwords. They actually say changing it as frequent is not necessary. So
That's
if you
good.
do something like that, if you have strong passwords in your organization, we would actually now, which is different than what we would have recommended maybe 2 years ago, is say, hey, don't change those passwords unless you think that password's been compromised or you're seeing
Yeah.
unusual activity.
Yeah.
So that is how I think the security world's kind of changing some of that guidance a little bit. But
the other one as a manager that would always drive me nuts would be an employee that would have a password and then they give their login password to somebody else. Or you'll have a client where they have to pay for users and they've got 20 users, but they only want to pay for 3 logins. And then they share that login and password. You've just opened Pandora's box,
right,
to all
right.
kinds of potential problems and all kinds of things going wrong. That it's like, I would encourage you not to do that. You may be saving a few dollars by not having to buy an extra login, but you've just created so much more potential risk for you and your company that is not going to be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. And the fact that probably when they leave, that was somebody that knows that password leaves, they probably don't change the password, which is again puts
Correct. Yep.
your organization
Cool.
at risk.
Benny, from your experience, what else are you hearing out there on stuff?
Well, one of the things that is super important, and people, from my experience, aren't familiar with it, is you may have the term two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, MFA. Bob, could you talk a little bit about the importance of that? What does that mean, and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something too that, again, one of the keys that we recommend is, almost, it used to be a great option in security, and now I would say it's a requirement, is if you have the ability to, what we do, multi-factor authentication, which means you have something, like your username and password, and then something you have, which could be a code, it could be a USB, like a hardware token that you put into a phone or a computer. But turning that on, especially if you're a small business, or in your personal life, anything with your email, your finances, it's critical, especially when you think about your email. Your email is such a big piece of your authentication step. So once someone gets your email, and if they get access to that, they can really find, what are all your other accounts, kind of map out what does your life look like from a digital perspective. And so, if you have that MFA, and say someone does get your email, you're going to get a prompt and say, wait a second, I'm not trying to log in from Arizona, I'm in Tennessee, or something like that. So again, just critical step, and really whenever you can turn MFA on, recommend that.
And it's easy for the listeners that don't use it. I mean, there's an app on your phone, mine pops up and you just go to it, and I've got, I don't know, 50 different ones in there, and you can just find the thing, and the code pops up, and then you just type the code in and it lets you in. Or a lot of the banks or credit cards will then text you a code, and then you put the code in, and it just gives you a better sense of security. Because to your point, I've had a couple where it's like, that wasn't me. And so you knew someone was trying to hack in. So they'd gotten part of the way in, but they hadn't gotten all the way. And that step there Just it gives you that extra set of, think of it as a castle. It's kind of the moat around the castle. You've got the guards there, but it's like, okay, now they got to work really hard to get in.
Right. Right.
So let me ask Bob, and this is a little bit along those lines. Dennis reminded me when he was talking about this is I'm starting to see a lot of things, and maybe some of the listeners have too, these things about passkeys. And I'm seeing more and more about that. And people are confused about what they are. It seems a little unsafe. What are they? How do they work? Can you explain passkeys?
Yeah. Yeah. So a pass key is really what it's doing is trying to tie your login to a set of specific information, like the IP address, specifically usually the device you're coming from. And so if you're using that same passkey on that device, it's a secure token mechanisms for logging in. If you're trying to use it from another device, typically it's set up to where that wouldn't work. And so it makes actually your life easier to log in. And usually a lot of these password managers will store those passkeys for you as well. And so again, would definitely recommend using passkeys. They're safe. And they're much easier to use than a password in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And in terms of where we're moving, supposedly we are moving into a passwordless type of environment, and slowly things will be more convenient for us, but a little bit more secure. Hopefully that's what's happening. Bob, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about scams. We hear these weird words, especially if somebody is maybe, not in this space. I hear phishing, I hear smishing, I hear pig butchering. This sounds horrible. This sounds like a butcher shop. What are we talking about here? What is all this stuff?
Yeah, and this is something too. We go back to like training your employees and just even for yourself in your organization. But the weakest link is the person in front of the computer. Every time, that's going to be the weakest link. Is someone's going to see something, they're going to click on something, and so we've always had these scams. You've seen the Nigerian prince that needs to send you $5 million, and all these different things that we've seen over probably the 90s, 2000s, and up to today. What's scary about this, Benny, I think from today's perspective, is AI. AI has made this extremely convincing. So when you get an email, it's not going to be written full of misspellings and bad language. It's going to be written very well. It's going to sound just like, say, it's supposed to be coming from a vendor. It's going to sound like a very legitimate email. And if you don't take the time to think about it, before you click on something, and recommend you don't click on it. You actually go to that website and log in yourself to make sure it's legitimate. It's going to get you. There's actually an article in the Wall Street Journal recently that I saw about pig butchering, which is really where these are operations that are in Southeast Asia, West Africa, and basically just criminal gangs, because they're making a lot of money from doing this. But they build trust with these victims, and what they call fatten up the pig, which is the victim, and they'll cultivate either a romantic connection or even like a just some type of friendly connection with the person where they trust them to invest their money, do different things. They pick on elderly people a lot. This article was talking about this gentleman had kind of an early form of dementia, and just was sending, I think, lost like $5 million, where he was the one sending them the money. So that from a bank perspective, what's their culpability in that as well. But they're sending this money, so these scams are just getting worse and worse every day. And I think my advice on that is I hate to say, be like more like security guys like myself, but don't trust everything that you see. Most things you see coming through are something that you need to stop and think about before responding.
So Bob, like in my Hotmail, I know it has a junk folder, and a lot of things go into the junk folder. I mean, I look through them, but I mean, like, the other day there was one from, it was supposedly Bank of America, but then the email address, it didn't have Bank of America. It had and so you knew right away it was junk. They were using the Bank of America logo, but it was not Bank of America. I mean, so is it kind of fair if it's in junk? It's probably junk, and you're better off just. I mean, there may be some things in there, and you can move it to your end folder, but most of it probably just delete it and be done with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to add to that too, that you're going to have some things that don't get caught by these junk filters. There's just so much. There's only so much Microsoft,
Right.
Google can keep up with, and there are going to be things, especially if they're targeted at you, they're going to get through.
So, question for you. So if one comes in and it's in junk, and I don't open it and just delete it, it's gone. And I do the thing sometimes, especially if it looks really, really weird. I'll do report it to phishing or whatever. So is that worthwhile doing, or is that a waste of time and effort? Or
Yeah, I think it's good to do it because all you're doing is you're helping train whatever email service you're using. So if it's Microsoft or Google, they get so many of those emails in, they're
Okay.
going to start blocking those accounts, or they're going to evaluate it further. So I do recommend doing it. I'd say if it's in your junk email, I'll be honest, I'm probably similar to you, Dennis. There's so much junk in there that I just delete it. I don't even bother with it.
If it's one of them that looks really, really bad, or where they're asking for money, those are the ones I'll send to phishing, because it's like there's some elderly person that's going to fall for this, and hopefully I can help them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if it does get into your email, your inbox, and you for some reason open it, so let's say that one Bank of America one came, but it really wasn't Bank of America, is that the problem at that point? Could they have stuff in there that then gets into your computer, or is it more that they're just trying to get you to communicate back and forth with them?
They're just trying to get you to communicate back and forth. So there could be, in some cases, they may have some information on you. And again, there's been so many breaches over the years.
Right.
I mean, you think of the Equifax breach being probably one of the bigger ones, where they pretty much got every American, or you just look at the Change Healthcare breach that happened last year.
Yeah.
I mean, hundreds of millions of people's social security numbers, addresses, information. You start taking that, and then you start using AI, data mining, all these other tools that are out there. You can start building a profile pretty quickly. And so if somebody wants to target you, they probably have a lot of information. And so all we can do is, I loved your analogy earlier, Dennis, of a castle and a moat. Is all we can do is try to make sure that we have layered defenses. So if they got through, they got some information. Well, hey, I'm going to get a notice on my phone that someone's trying to log in from Arizona, and I'm in Tennessee. So I'm gonna see that and stop it.
Awesome.
But you really do have to I think everybody should basically consider that their data has been compromised. There's no way
exactly.
Something's been compromised,
especially with AI. And I mean, because there's so many things we all sign up for, we do, and online, your data out there about your name, your email, your address, the world has that. And unfortunately, they probably have your social security number as well. And so now you've got to be the defense, and you can't sue somebody or whatever for it, because it's just, there's so much of it's just out there in today's world.
Right.
So Bob, let me ask, in terms of if I'm a business owner, right, and we try to give everybody practical ideas about how they can do it, because like you said, the human being is the weakest part, right? But I want to know now, today, if I'm in an environment, how threatened am I? How much of a target am I today? I mean, I've maybe, I bought a firewall 7 years ago from, my IT guy, and I have Norton on my computers. I think I've done a decent job, but, maybe we don't know exactly, the big holes. What can a company do?
Yeah, I think if you start, you look at what your landscape look like. So if you have Microsoft, M365, which I think a lot of organizations have, or you have Google, really look at some of those security controls that those organizations provide. And you may need, somebody to help you, like an MSP or something like that, to come in and help you implement some of those basic controls. But for instance, if you go to say you're Microsoft 365, they have a whole section on security where you can go and you can see your security score in Microsoft 365, and it'll say, hey, you're 55 out of 100% score. And here's a list of items that we recommend you do to help protect yourself. And it may be, hey, add additional phishing or detection around emails to block, instead of being a more, hey, allow more emails in, kind of be a more restrictive approach to that. It could be, like you said, maybe having Norton on your machine, or maybe implementing, other more advanced EDR detection systems like a CrowdStrike or a Microsoft Defender on your machine. But one thing, Benny, is some of this is, yeah, you just have to work with partners that understand this and it can help you build that out. Or spend a lot of your spare time on YouTube and research, which a lot of people don't have time. You're running your business, but that's where different partners can come in and help you implement controls to help protect your business.
And
So
it doesn't have to be super expensive, because I know a lot of people are concerned about that. It can be like a couple bucks per person a month is what we're talking
Right.
about, to at least get something. And I think
Exactly.
everybody needs something.
and
Sorry, I
it's
interrupted
one
you,
also,
Dennis.
make sure you talk about it with your team. I mean, it's like, don't
Yeah.
just talk about when you hire someone and forget about it. It's because, again, Bob hit on it. The weakest link is the human sitting in front of that keyboard. So you can
Mhm.
put all the safety nets and all the other stuff in place, but if the person at the keyboard is not thinking and being aware of some of this stuff, you're for naught. So it's like, okay, you got to make it a point. And so that's why October is Security Month. I mean, I would encourage everybody to sit down with your team and just have a brief discussion around some basic things that Bob just talked about related to security, and just make sure your team is prepared and aware of those things.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and Dennis, sitting down here as a team, that's a great point. That's really what this is about. Like I said, this is Security Awareness Month. And again, there's a lot of free resources, like I mentioned. CISA.gov is a great resource to get information. And one other point, that I did want to bring up that is important is, we talked about passwords, we talked about MFA, we talked about scams and phishing and being alert on that. The other one
Mhm.
is updating your software.
Yeah.
There are vulnerabilities that are coming out every day. And for the most part, if your Windows, Mac, it does, your iPhone, Android,
Mhm.
whatever those, you can set up with auto updates. And so I would just recommend you set up auto updates on all your devices, all your employees' devices, to make sure that those machines are constantly getting the latest security updates. I would say, even when you get an update from app, when you think it's just functionality, if you go down to those notes, you're getting security updates in almost every single update that's coming out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of the other pillar there that I would just like to mention is make sure you're keeping your systems up to date.
Yeah. One myth I did want to address, because I think you reminded me, Bob, is that there was a time when Mac was considered to be virus proof, but I think that a lot of it had to do with the fact that Macs were kind of like the lesser system, less popular system. But now that they've grown in popularity, that scammers are targeting the Mac operating systems more so. So just because you're on a Mac doesn't mean you're not vulnerable to those type of attacks.
Great point.
So make sure you keep those updated. We could talk about this for a long time. I think there's a lot to this, and there's much more that Bob didn't get into. So I know some folks are going to have some questions for you, Bob, that maybe that would be specific for their company that they need some help with. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to learn a little bit more, and maybe you could help them out?
Yeah, a couple things. One is they can go anytime to bullseyecompliance.com. And on that website, there's a contact us form. Fill that out, and someone will get back with you quickly and see how we can help you out. The other thing is we created this security assessment tool, which it was
Mm,
free, that anybody can go to and take a quick security assessment for their organization to see kind of where they stand. And then based on that, we'll give you some recommendations on what you can do. There's no obligation to it. Yep. And thank you, Dennis. Dennis just pulled it up here on the screen. But yeah, you can go in, complete that information, and we'll reach out to you and give you some, points and tips on what you can do to help improve your security program.
yeah. Well, great. That's awful generous, and I think that's something that uh, you know, without understanding better what your situation is, you'll never know what kind of vulnerabilities you have. And I'll tell you, if you have never been attacked by a virus or malware or ransomware, count yourself lucky. It's a matter of time. I've had to deal with this with clients, and it is a nightmare. It is absolutely a nightmare.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It's
And
awful.
It's horrible. So, Bob, thank you so much for stopping by today. Really appreciate
you.
the time. It's always great to have you here. But thanks again. You guys, Security Awareness Month for October. Thanks again for stopping by.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to WFH with Two Guys. We'll see you next time.